I think we at the Animal Health Trust have a start. We need to be educating vets. I think veterinary surgeons need to do their homework on these infections, remind themselves what the appropriate steps are. And as you saw there with the social media, work together as much as possible to make sure that the messaging is consistent and will be easily adopted by the horse-owning public. And I think BEVA, the British Equine Veterinary Association, probably have an important role as well, because they can communicate to the veterinary surgeons very, very quickly. And I'm pleased to say that BEVA in all of these outbreaks have been instrumental in getting messaging out to vets. So yeah, it's all of us, and we need to be providing reliable sources of information, such as the DEFRA Quarterly Disease Surveillance Report.
Okay, thanks, Richard. David,
Completely.
you're here as chair of British Horse Council, though, so yeah, do that bit.
Thank you. I completely agree with Richard, actually. I think it's everyone's responsibility to get the message out there. The challenge is we're trying to balance getting the message out there quickly with getting good quality information out there. And I think on this outbreak, you mentioned previously, there were 6 veterinary practices involved, so that's 6 different veterinary contact points. There were also potentially information coming in from different laboratories, and there's the delay between the samples being taken and the results coming out. So all of those factors mean that there are going to be delays and differences in getting the information out there quickly and efficiently. And then if we add to that getting together to make sure we're all having a consistent message, there's a potential for further delay there. Nonetheless, as you've said, Richard, there is definite benefit in the professionals getting together and discussing behind closed doors and getting a consistent message out there. And on the back of that learning, we're trying to coordinate at least the veterinary output. We've got a meeting later this month to work out whether there is a better way of doing this to make sure that the messaging is consistent. And the BEF have already a very effective means of getting the key players together to ensure, with veterinary input, that the BEF provides a consistent message through its various bodies. So I think we're doing okay, but I think there's room for improvement.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Do you want to shout? Yeah, just shout.
Whether we know what the equestrian bodies think.
Start again. Say who you are, please. Yeah.
Chris Keat, Equine Health, Your Royal Highness, Lords, Ladies and Gentlemen. Do we know what the equestrian bodies think about vaccination of EHV, and are they aligned?
Guess that'll be me again. Okay. In this country, I would say that EHV1 vaccination is not mandated for any equestrian activity. So racing has not mandated it, made it compulsory, as it has for flu, which dates back to the early 1980s. Interestingly, in 2018, the French equivalent did mandate it unilaterally on the back of what we presume was a neurological EHV1 outbreak. But that's interesting because the vaccine is not licensed for that use, and they only required it to follow the then flu rules with annual revaccination, and the data sheet license says every 6 months. I am an advocate of vaccination, as you may have thought, but I think where a sector makes it compulsory as a requirement for competition, I think that's something you've got to be a little bit careful before you make that decision. It's quite a cost then for all of your competitors, particularly if you're vaccinating twice a year. And you just need to weigh up what the cost benefit of that is. It may come, but let's sort flu out first, would be my plea.
Jan, are there any questions on Slido?
Can we pop Slido up, please?
Yeah, here we go. Right. Let's look at the one from Dale Newman. Sheila, do you wonder how to minimise the spread of disease with top 3 things should all horse owners be doing?
Yeah, exciting. Use vaccinations appropriately. Speak to your vet and take their advice. and thirdly, biosecurity. Biosecurity is a much maligned idea, and maybe the name is wrong, but actually we all have a responsibility to practice good biosecurity at home, at shows. I mean, we're experiencing biosecurity in the human context with the coronavirus outbreak. It's as simple as washing your hands. It's as simple as deciding where you're going to do. It's as simple as not sharing a face cloth or a hairbrush. None of us would think that was a normal thing to do. So why do we let our horses share brushes, use buckets, have nose-to-nose contact? There are lots of really simple things, but my top three would be, first of all, use vaccinations appropriately. Secondly, good biosecurity. And thirdly, take the advice of your own vet, because your circumstances are probably different from everyone else's.
Thank you. David.
I completely agree with Sheila's points there. I would add, or would highlight perhaps in terms of the biosecurity, isolating new horses coming into an environment. And I think that's one of the things that we understand practically that's a challenge, but actually it's really fundamentally important in order to maintain good biosecurity. And a lot of the flu cases that you saw last year, Richard, were, you could trace it back to an unvaccinated horse entering the premises.
Okay. Let's go on to this other Slido question. Competition disciplines have different flu vaccination booster requirements. This causes confusion. How can it be made easier for owners to do the right thing? Sheila.
I'd start with all competitions requiring vaccination as a starting point. We're not even in a position where everything requires vaccination. And I know I've made myself unpopular. Some of you will know I'm a Pony Club DC. I have made myself unpopular by sending ponies and kids home from camp until they bring their passport and can demonstrate vaccination. Over and above that, I do think it's important that we make it as easy for people as possible to comply with what they need. And there is a difference between what the data sheet says and what we suspect will happen in terms of immunity. But there does have to be a cut-off. So my suggestion is we as an industry get together, we decide what's acceptable, and then we apply it across the board. No ifs, no buts.
Yeah, I would like to provide some encouragement on that. Through looking at different forums a little while ago, we decided that the current rules were quite varied across different disciplines, and there really was a need for this harmonisation. So myself and colleagues at the Trust have tried to push this. Then flu outbreak came in 2019, that rather stalled us, and actually it shifted the early vaccination intervals to much more how frequently you're going to booster vaccinate. But I think we are getting there, and I think there should be a harmonised set that people can adopt. I think racing will take the lead on this. The data sheets that recommend how they operate, the rules have to sit around those, and therefore you do get a bit more flexibility than you think is ideal. But I think we will have harmonised rules. And to answer this person's question, I would say you booster vaccinate every 6 months, and you will comply whatever. And that's what we're currently still recommending.
Good. Okay. Well, there are a number of questions coming through on Slido, but I'm afraid time has really gone against us. So can I, on your behalf, thank Richard Newton in particular, the Minister who is still with us, for their contributions, and also for David and Sheila for coming on the platform. So thank you very much.